Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Incubator podcast. We're here, another episode number 3. Um, we're here, like I said, at the Incubator podcast where the beats are electric, the vibes are contagious, and the talent is off the charts. I'm your host, the one and only Ed the Manager, here to take you on a wild ride through the world of underground music. Before wow. I'm a little nervous today. Ooh. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to highlight something special about this podcast. We're completely self-supported with no ads, and we ask for nothing more than your support in the form of a follow, like, and subscribe. It's all about building a community around our shared love of music. We're all keeping it raw and unfiltered. Today, we have a very special guest who just released his latest record track, and he's about to release another one in the coming month. So please help me introduce the boy Cession.
What's up,
What's
brother?
good, my boy?
Thank
How
you for having
doing?
me. Appreciate
for sure,
it.
For sure.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, man. So we were just listening to a little bit of it before, and you actually played it on the last live stream that we had.
I did. I closed
Yeah.
out the set with it. I was only right to do that, right?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
a fun
yeah.
set. I was ready to come here and have a good time, and that's what we did.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So actually, if we can play a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
You wanna
Happy
play it?
to. Little sneak
Hell
peek.
yeah.
It comes out the 23rd of June, so very soon. So it's
Awesome,
exciting.
awesome. Let's hear that real quick.
Baby, get close to me. Tell me where I would. 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 Tell me where I would.
Hell yeah.
That's it. Little sneak peek. Little sneak peek. Exclusive.
Yo, that's hard, bro.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yo, that's gonna kill it.
It's a
yeah.
good mix. It's like, it has that tech house vibe, but also like the break is a little bit more slow and like vibey, so you can listen to it in the car. Kind of caters to a little bit of everything. So it's
Yo,
it's a good
that's
track.
fire,
I'm
yo. I
excited.
really like it.
Shout out to my boy Davs. He is a collaborator. Again, this is a follow-up from our previous record that released, Escape, which actually broke 30,000 streams, which was my highest number. So
That's crazy.
this one is a follow-up. It's another collab, this time featuring a vocalist, a good friend of mine, who goes by Nick James, talented musician. And yeah, it was a fun one to make. This song's been in the creation for like a year and a half probably.
Wow.
And then it was finally got to a point where it's just like, let's release it. Like it deserves to be heard. We pitched it to Jendex again, and they liked it. So we're gonna run with it and see what we can do. If we can break the 30K, then that's great. If we get close to it, I'm happy with whatever. As long as it's received well and people enjoy it, that's all I can ask for. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. Tell me a little bit about the story behind it. Like what?
Yeah.
How did it start?
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about it the other day. So me and my boy Nick were making music at the time. We were like just hanging out, grinding, making songs, and just kind of like experimenting with whatever came to mind. And we were writing. I actually started out as like a future bass, like hip hop type kind of instrumental, and then Nick laid down some vocals, and I was really liking the idea of where it was going. So he left, and then that's my time to like actually recraft what I made, because when you're in a session like that, sometimes things flow, sometimes they don't, but the vocal was there, the vibe was getting there. So I was like, let me go back to the lab, let me see what we can do. And I just ended up turning it back into a house session spin, getting it more to a vibe that fits my style. And then it just kind of turned into that, and the vocal, we finished it up, kind of went with the theme close to me and kind of just ran with it and got it to a place where I liked it, and wanted to finish it up. So I sent it to my boy Davs, and he was really liking the vibe as well. So he kind of gave it his own spin, helped me finish the drop and kind of add those melodic elements that it felt like it was missing. And that's how the collaboration kind of came through, and the rest was history. And now it's a full-fledged out track that we're all proud of. So it's been a good journey.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about how you met with Davs, because I know he doesn't live here, right?
He doesn't, correct. Yeah, so this is that's a great question. So yeah, we were on a Discord group actually that we kind of found a content creator on TikTok that we both liked, and he had a Discord community with people who were looking to collaborate or just kind of meet other artists, of course. And then we just kind of were in that community. I reached out to him, and we talked about possibly collaborating, and it just kind of worked. Our styles were relatively similar, but what he did versus what I did was different enough to where a collaboration just worked perfectly. And we actually just became really good friends out of that. We nearly talk every day. He is my homie that I could send music to and be like, yo, what do you think about this? He does the same. He's been killing it this year. He's got a bunch of releases. Actually, shout out to Davs. He just got a release today on Gahara Records. And it's already doing good numbers. So
Awesome.
he's been killing it this year. And yeah, he's just a good homie, and it's fun to make music with people, regardless of them living here or not. It's like another kind of testament to music and what it does for people. It like brings people together. So we can be thousands of miles away, but we still talk as close as some of my friends that I see here just about music. And it's just a good bonding, you know. It's like what we're doing now. It brings people together. It's a good conversation. It's just what it's meant to be. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
no, and I would say, how did you get into the Discord, and like how did you find that? Because
Yeah.
I think that's a big important thing
It
for
is.
upcoming artists.
Absolutely, especially producers out there. It's important to just be involved in community. It's easy to get trapped in your bedroom making beats all day, right? And it's like I struggle with it myself. I'm in the studio for like 5 hours, and I'm like just making music, and it's something I'm choosing to do. Don't get me wrong, and I love it, but there's a community of other artists doing the same thing, and if you can connect with them on the topic of music and collaboration and just talking about the art form that you all share a passion for, it's just a better way that way. So just kind of finding people online that you like and you look up to or inspired by. Maybe they're at a similar skill level to you, or maybe they're better than you. And I encourage all the producers out there to find people who are better than you, because it's a journey, and you want to find people who you can gravitate towards and learn things from. So joining Discord communities, there's plenty of them out there. There's also I'm a big supporter of not Fiverr, Patreon. And Patreon is a great resource for producers to find other artists who offer their services, and maybe it's like feedback sessions, or maybe it's like samples, or just like actual lessons and breakdowns. Artist that I've been following really closely for the last few months, and part of his Patreon, is Kyle Watson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's actually a pretty big DJ, and he has a Patreon, and it kind of just gives tutorials, he gives track breakdowns, he gives samples out, and it's been a huge resource for me as a producer to build my skills. So I'm giving you guys a little insider. There's not too many of us in part of that Patreon, but it's a hidden gem for if you really want to learn from somebody who's very skilled and is in the industry. He gives out gems, and it's been huge for like not only my growth as a producer, but just like the insights and learning. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I
good
had
thing.
no idea about Patreon. I mean, I know Patreon is a good channel for DJs to connect with their audience,
Absolutely.
but to network with other people in the industry, I didn't know people were using it for that.
100%. Yeah, and
That's
just learning. It's a learning resource. You know, there's so many different ways to use that platform. So if you can find a way
Sure.
that works for you, and if you want to learn, there's a lot of resources out there to do so.
Yeah, and how did you find those Discord groups? Were you in like Reddit groups or TikTok groups? Or-
It was like TikTok. There was like looking at other creators and DJs who were out there and putting their music out. Just kind of, they were like, hey, join the Discord community, and people are welcoming. You know what I mean? People want to be part of a community, especially when you do something that you enjoy doing. It's like being part of a community gives you more of like a incentive to create and kind of build like-minded individuals and kind of a community around that. So yeah, it's just kind of looking. I mean, if you have an idea for what you want or the direction you want to go in, there's something for everyone. You know what I mean? Regardless of if you make music or if you're a painter or whatever kind of art medium you choose to create, there's a community out there for you. So I really encourage all artists of all kind of walks of life to find the community that they feel that they want to belong to, and look for other like-minded individuals, and through collaboration, your art will be taken to another level. I'm a big believer in that, for sure.
Oh yeah, I love that. And going back to a little bit of how you were starting the music, you were working with a producer last time we were in contact when we were working on
Yeah.
the track.
Right.
Tell me
Yeah.
more about that.
Are you talking about the track that's about to come out, or
Um,
Escape, the previous one?
It was with a guy. I think his name's something with Fox.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, that was another Patreon. That was another artist that I was working with and through Patreon who also offers services, and yeah, it was just I've kind of cycled through mentors because I like finding mentors. I like finding people who can share information with, and I try it for a little bit. I learn what I can, and I see what else is out there. So there's a lot of Patreon groups. Like I mentioned, he was another artist, another
Wow.
great artist, a lot of label releases, and he taught me a lot about releasing and just kind of better understanding mixing and just kind of the technicalities. Music production is very technical. It can be, and oftentimes it's good to learn those skills from people who have already mastered them or have already perfected them in certain ways. And that's why I'm a big advocate for learning from other people who are out there. You know what I mean? So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. And how would you say that's helped you in this track?
Yeah, I would say tremendously. This one I started like a year ago, I would say. So I would say this one kind of shines more into like the collaboration and like the benefits of collaboration, because where the track was at, where I was just working on it and me and Nick with Nick's vocals, whereas where Daz was able to take it to another level and just kind of give it that extra, oomph that it needed to be what it is today. It just goes to show what the beauty of collaboration and the importance of it, and just being able to kind of create something that's like bigger than you might imagine by yourself, and then with somebody else they can kind of take it to a new level. So I think music is meant to be shared. It's meant to be shared to the world once it's done, but I think the process itself is also meant to be shared. And like I said, there's often times where I'm starting a track in my room by myself, but like when I bring somebody else into the mix and I'm like, yo, can you help me finish this? Or what do you think this track is missing? And they might bring their own ideas. It's like, it's incredible the outcome that can come from that.
For sure. Of that. Yeah. And what would you say is what was the hardest thing about making this track? What was your biggest challenge?
Yeah, so for this one, I don't know. It kind of free flowed because, like I mentioned previously, this track was just a future based, like basic beat that me and my friend were experimenting with and just kind of trying to have fun in a studio where we're writing vocals and it's nothing serious, to recognizing that, okay, there's actually something underlying here. And that's like, as an artist, it's nice to be able to tell when there's something that's worth your time,
Yeah.
and worth as something that might just be, this was fun, but I can move on from, you know what I mean? But I heard the potential of it. I knew the vocal was catchy enough to build something around. I just needed to get it to the vibe of Cession, which was taking it back to like house. And after I had that like initial idea, I was able to, flesh out the track pretty quickly and just kind of flow through it. So I guess getting it to a place that I enjoyed, and then just kind of passing it along to Davs to do the rest, and it kind of, went from there. So I wouldn't say this track in particular really gave me too much trouble. It was one of those that just kind of came into fruition, and the idea was there, the vocal was there, and the rest has just kind of worked itself out, which those don't come very often,
Yeah.
but when they're there, those are like usually the best ones, and they're
Yeah,
effortless. So.
that kind of answers my next question, which was, I know there's some times where, you're talking about how you're just producing all day,
Sure.
and sometimes you just get stuck, and you can't find the balance. You're
Yeah.
stuck working all day, and then you're like,
Absolutely.
where did the time go?
Yeah, no, definitely, man. It is. You said it perfectly. It's a very much a balancing act, especially as a smaller artist, we have our full-time jobs, we have our life outside of music, and I think something that I've really came to an understanding of as an artist and as a creative this year was it can sometimes be a struggle finding that balance, and you want to pursue your passion, which might be music, whatever art that you are passionate about, but then you also got to be realistic, and you also have to provide for yourself. So it might mean having a job, it might mean working at XYZ, whatever that looks like for you. And like I think that's the beauty of the grind. You gotta be able to provide yourself enough comfort to be able to pursue your passions, and it provides it's a balancing act, and it can get be a struggle sometimes, but you just gotta lock yourself in and like tune into the music and like really just focus on creating. And I think it's about staying consistent. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's been a journey, and I think that's like what it's about. I think it's meant to be a journey, right? Anything like think about like where we started here, like or where you started rather. It's like it wasn't to this degree right away,
I know,
right?
yeah.
It was a journey. It's like it took time to get here, and I think that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a journey, and you're meant to appreciate all the steps. And I still get the Snapchat memories of like me 2 years ago when or like a year and a half ago when I just started diving into EDM or electronic music. And what I was making then was just fun. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't good. And where I'm at now has gotten so much better, but I know like I have so much more that I can do, and that I'll continue to, grow as a producer, grow as a person, and continue to perfect my sound and fine tune it and really find my style. But it's a journey. So eventually it's just kind of staying consistent and believing in yourself and your abilities and your ability to create. And then just let it take you where it's meant to, right?
Hell yeah, hell yeah. And taking it back to the beginning of the journey, at what point did you realize this this is the one? Like this is gonna be a banger.
Yeah, I think after we had the vocal, which is interesting because we didn't really have like any of the other melodic pieces of like what I wanted it to be yet. It was just like I knew I had to change it into like a house track, but the vocal was there, and Nick is a super talented artist, and we've created a lot of music together. That's like literally one of my best friends, and like it was like one of those sessions where it's fun to work and just create. And once we had the vocal and we had the main theme down, that kind of guided the rest of the track and the melodics of the bass line and the melodies and kind of top line layers. And I think sometimes starting with a vocal can be like the kind of key to finishing out a track, you know what I mean? It kind of gives it that glue to make everything else make sense. So you might have like a intro, you have your break, you have your drop, and then a vocal can kind of bring the whole idea together. And I happened to start with a vocal that was already original, so I knew labels always prefer that when you have an original vocal, and then just kind of flowed with the vibe and kind of found it from there. And ended up just being something that I was like, okay, this is cool. I like where this is going. And when you get that feeling, you just gotta run with it as a producer. You just gotta, all right, this is it. All right, let's go. Like this is it. Yeah, it gets exciting. You know what I mean? The beginning stages are exciting too because you get to experiment. But when you actually have something there that's like fundamental and that you actually enjoy, it's like a really good feeling because like you said, you're excited about it. You can run with it and you believe in it. So that's kind of just how it kind of came about.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
yeah. And you're originally from New York?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm from New York. I'm a New Yorker. I lived there basically all my life, and then came here and just kind of still getting accustomed to the Florida weather. But it's I think that's a lifelong thing.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
But yeah, I do love it here. I'm super grateful for all the great people I've met while being in Southwest Florida specifically. Obviously, you're one of them, and it's been great. And I noticed, too, going back to, like, the reason why we're here today is to talk about music. And all of my closest friends and all of my closest people in my circle are people I've met through music and the creating of this journey that I've been on for the past 5 years. And I'm like, if that's all I get out of making music, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? And I think that's like, it's such a cool thing to look at all the people I have in my life that are my closest friends and just be like, yo, we were all brought here through the love of music and like the creativity that we all share. And like, that's really dope to create a community in your personal life out of something that you're passionate about. You know what I mean?
For sure. I was thinking about that the other day, just how pretty much my last few years have just been music.
Yeah,
Everything's
right?
about music. It's been about the underground music.
For sure.
Originally, I didn't even start with EDM. I was actually in
Right.
like the rap and hip hop
That's dope.
when I was going into college, and I was with the underground scene. And then they started at the kava bars.
Right.
And
That's
then
where I
the
met
DJs
you.
started going to the kava bars.
Yeah, we took over, right?
Yeah, and I started going to the festivals, and it just, it all blended in
And then,
together.
that's how it started for me too, man. I started making hip hop beats. Like when I first got FL Studio, I like watched a bunch of YouTube tutorials. I don't know if you're familiar with Internet Money. They're like a producer group. There's a guy who goes by Nick Mira. He's a big producer out there, and he kind of puts a bunch of videos. They're a collective of producers, right? And they make beats. They made beats for Juice WRLD. Some of Juice WRLD's biggest hits were produced by Nick Mirror, who I spent hours and hours watching on YouTube, right? And just kind of studying what software are they using. All of them were using FL Studio at that time because FL Studio caters more to like hip hop and whatnot. And then they were all using like Omnisphere, which was like the first plugin I bought, which was crazy, bro. I started producing and I was making my own money at this time because I was just working my first job. And I was like talking it over with my mom. I was like, I think I want to dive into this, but it's like an investment. And like, obviously I didn't have a lot of money at the time. It was like one of my first jobs. And I was like, but I know I got to put up money to like actually have a return on investment. You know what I mean? If this is something I truly want to pursue, then I'm just going to put money into it. So at that time when I was watching the YouTube videos, they were all using this plugin called Omnisphere, which is like one of like the most iconic plugins out there that has like has over I think like 60,000 sounds that you can use.
Jeez.
And it's insanely strong, but it's $500. And I was talking over my mom. I was like, okay, I might buy this, but I also have to buy the DAW, which is FL Studio, which is another 200. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And the best thing I ever did, I use Omnisphere every time I create. I've had it for 5 years, and it is. I spent $500 when I first started out. I spent actually $800 because I bought everything that I needed to get started. Omnisphere I could have done without, of course, because that's not necessary to get started. You don't need $800 by any means to get started as a producer. You can start very cheap. As long as you get a DAW, you can start from there if you want to make electronic music, that is. But yeah, I'm the kind of person that if I believe in a hobby or a passion, I'm okay with investing money into it because it also motivates me to continue using it. Like I was like, okay, I'm not gonna give up. I spent $800 on this hobby.
Yeah.
Like let's see where it could take me, and then it eventually turned into passion and like a something I actually really enjoyed. And I think putting up that money for me in the beginning made me want to stay more motivated to be consistent and really just kind of see where the path took me. So yeah, that being said, I started out making hip hop beats, just kind of tight beats. Literally have probably over 200 beats on my phone still that I go back to every so often just to listen. And like, they're nothing crazy, but like, I also, a testament to producers who might be just getting started is watch videos, like indulge in like the content that's out there. There's so much content in not only YouTube, but like Reddit, all these communities like we've already mentioned. There's just so many people out there who create and put content out. And I think watching hundreds of hours of YouTube content before I even picked up a DAW or bought anything allowed me to jump in with like a foot on the ground, ready to start going already. I didn't feel super uncomfortable. I knew my way around the DAW. I knew what I should be doing, and then I just started getting comfortable in there and like actually making music right away. Which, you get a DAW, and like some people who maybe haven't watched content might struggle a little bit more than maybe I did because I watched content and like figured it out. And it's very doable. The YouTube videos are out there, so I highly recommend people do that and, find the content that's out there. And even if you already have a DAW, watch content because you can learn so much from other people and just dive in with actually comfortability of knowing what to do. And it's something that helped me tremendously. And I was making beats on my first day of having like full beats on my first day of having a DAW. Like I literally can go back to my first one because I know exactly which one it is. And it's average. It's nothing great, but it's solid for like never producing before. And yeah, eventually I just kind of jumped into EDM and kind of found my way. And then I was like, I like this more. So yeah, the rest is history.
How did that happen?
It was just a lot of like trial and error. I think it was, making beats only could get me so far, I guess, in my creative journey. I felt like I was, gonna just, make beats or type beats and just put them out on YouTube, which is nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of successful people out there who make type beats, and I think it's an awesome path to take. It just I didn't resonate enough with it to actually want to continue making just type beats. I wanted to make, full songs and kind of like be from like the start, the inception of the idea all the way to the end. And type beat producers or just regular hip hop producers can be that as well. But I wanted to kind of build in my own way, and I've always liked electronic music, and it's always been a passion of mine or something I really enjoyed. And I was like, I have an ear for this. Let me just jump into it. And I kind of looked at some of the artists I enjoyed at that time and started just kind of taking what my knowledge was in producing hip hop into carrying it over into electronic music. And that kind of took me to like making trap beats and like hybrid trap and like kind of bringing in electronic elements, but still having that like hip hop like foundation. And then I loved house, and then eventually that just took over and has become the driving force of who Cession is. I would say house music is like at the forefront of that.
Awesome, awesome. And who would you say your favorite? Uh, who are you trying to not mimic, but who do you look up to in the scene?
Yeah, I would say my like Mount Rushmore of like house artists would be like Chami. I would say is up there. Um, Phenomenal French producer. He's been around for a long time doing this and killing it, and really enjoy his music. And I love the thing I love about Chami is his versatility. He can do like the bass house, heavy hitting house music, and then bring it to like old school like French house. Then he can bring it to like middle ground, like stuff to just listen to and vibe to. And that's where I'm really inspired, because I like the idea of like using house music as a fundamental to what I create, but allowing myself to experiment with different like subgenres of it and kind of find different middle grounds that I enjoy to create. And then I would say Chris Lake is another one of those artists. He does not miss. He just makes hit after hit.
Bro, it's banger
Right.
after banger after banger, bro.
So yeah, it's just I would say those two artists are some of the artists that are I really enjoy. But at the end of the day, man, I'm just a fan of music. Like regardless of genre, I enjoy good music. I can really listen and appreciate good music of any genre and just kind of listen and find inspiration in it. And another thing I would say for people who are producers is just to like listen to other music. Like doesn't necessarily have to be electronic music if that's what you make, or doesn't necessarily have to be hip hop if that's what you make. Like pull from other genres. It can be so different than what you make, but you can find so many like value and kind of like knowledge and gems in that to kind of incorporate into your own style. And I've heard some of the best producers say that they pull from different genres that are so different than what they actually create, and it's helped them in their journey. So it's something that I really found helpful as well.
That's good. That's good. That kind of takes me into my next question. What keeps you motivated to keep growing as an artist?
Yeah, I would say just finding that the consistency in it. Just believing that this isn't like that. If I keep going, this is like kind of just like the baseline of where I'll be talent wise. You know what I mean? Like if that makes sense. Like in a year from now, I'm going to be a lot better than where I'm at now. And another year from now, I'm going to be a lot better than where I was then. So it's just kind of like the roadmap of the journey, and understanding that it is a journey, that if I continue to create, there's always going to be something good that's going to come out of it, regardless of the numbers or how the song performs. It's like my skills are going to get better, the music I create and my sound and like kind of like who Cession is going to continue to evolve, and just that kind of inspires me to keep going. And like I said, I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now, and I've been very consistent where, I spend a lot of time in the studio perfecting my craft, and I'm nowhere close to where I want to be yet. But I think that's like enough of a motivation for me to keep going. You know what I mean? It's like I'm at a place where I'm like, I've been doing this for 5 years. What am I going to do? Give up? You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
no. It's like I've already spent way too much money on this. I've already spent too many hours in the studio. I've already sacrificed, time out to, do this. And it's like, why not just keep it going? I saw a funny, it wasn't funny, but it was a picture, it was a meme, but it was like, there was a dude digging on the left and another dude digging on the right, and they were digging for diamonds, but the dude on the left stopped, but the dude on the right kept going, and it was an inch away. And it's like, that's kind of like, the same thing with music. It's like you can create your next song tomorrow, and you won't know that it can be the song that drives you to your next goal or your next vision. I have one of my friends who's a really talented engineer in the area told me about one of his friends, and he's a Grammy winning producer. And at the time he produced a song, he had no idea what the song was going to be, and it ended up winning a Grammy. And it's like he sat on it for 2 years because he didn't necessarily like think it was anything too crazy. And it eventually went on to win a Grammy. And that's just like, it goes to show, it's the same analogy. It's like, you never know how close you actually are. You know what I mean? So the best thing you can do is to just not give up and continue going. And if I'm a believer in that if you continue to go in a direction that you're growing and learning, whether that be in your personal life or in your creative life or just in life in general, there will always be a reward for that. And if you're doing good along that, then there's always going to be something good to get out of it. So I'm a big believer in that for sure.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And how I want to talk about how the process of the making the track to releasing it. So let's start off with how do you get into the creative mindset?
Yeah, that's a loaded question because it varies so often, right?
Do you have a specific ritual or anything like that?
I try to. I don't have something that's like super fine tuned, but I have certain things that I've noticed I've gravitate towards, and it starts with first identifying and setting my environment. My like bedroom studio is like I always like keeping my desk space very clean, and when I get started on producing a track, I sit down, I light a candle, put on an incense, set my like colors and like the vibe of my room right, and then I'll just turn on my speakers and I'll listen to music and I'll just see what's inspiring me, what am I gravitating towards, what kind of subgenre do I want to make, what kind of vibe do I want to go for, and I'll listen for different songs that kind of resonate with me. And if something catches my ear, I'm like, oh, this is fun. Like I like this. Let me go with this. I'll pull it in to the DAW as a reference track, and that is like my guide, right? It's like it gives me an idea of how to build out the track, how to structure it, what kind of elements are being used. Are there pads? Are there synths? What's the bass line like? What's ultimately what is cultivating this vibe that I hear and that I like, and that is enough to like guide me usually in the direction I want to go in, and then I just end up creating something that's usually very different than the reference track, but it's enough to get me started. It's very hard to kind of go in there, for me at least, to just go in with an empty picture, an empty canvas, and then an empty like mind as well, and just be like, what the hell do I want to create? Like if there's nothing to like inspire me to start creating or like a direction, it's very hard to kind of create a song, right? But when I have something I'm really enjoying listening to and I can create a vibe that feels similar to that, it kind of propels me into creating a track.
Have you thought of using the new AI technology?
I haven't. I've seen a lot of videos of people utilizing it, and I think it's super cool, and I see the benefits of it. I haven't found a way that I would use it yet, but there's a lot of, I think, cool benefits in kind of getting ideas out and seeing what's created, and just kind of tweaking it from there, or just even like you could probably write in a chat GPT prompt to like how do I write a song that's or like what would be a vibe that's like this, and it can like probably say like start with a bass line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's probably plenty of ways to use the AI tools out there, and I have to find some creative ways to use it. So maybe me and you can brainstorm some
For
ways
sure,
to incorporate it.
One thing I like to do is I like to ask it what I should ask it. Because sometimes you don't know what to ask or how to ask, right?
Yeah,
You might ask a shitty question and it'll give you a shitty response, but it can give you sometimes you see other people's responses and you're like, what did they do to get that response? And you just really got to ask it, hey, look, I'm trying to remake this song, but I want to change a little bit. Here's a couple of my other songs. So add a little bit of my style with this one.
Right.
What prompts should I give you in order for you to give me the most accurate
That's smart.
response? And then it'll shoot you back something.
Makes sense. The AI is gonna know how to ask the AI a question.
Exactly.
So yeah, I might use that. That's a smart approach.
Yeah. So I think the sky's the limit with this AI technology. I mention it to everyone because I use it for everything personally.
As you should, right?
But it's a new technology that's not here to take over, but it's another tool.
Agreed. I 100% agree. Yeah, there's no reason to like kind of like bash away from it or like go away from it, because it's going to be here regardless, whether you want it or not, and it's going to continue to evolve. So I guess the best thing we can do as people is to just evolve with it, learn how to use it for our advantage. And I think there's, like you said, it's a tool at the end of the day. So if you use it the right way, I'm sure there'll be a lot of good that comes out of it.
In the technology world, there's a new job being formed.
Okay.
That's called the prompt engineer.
That's sick.
People just literally
figuring
out
that's
how
pretty
to
cool.
ask AI questions. Yeah.
That's very unique.
And what these prompt engineers do is like they'll build a whole AI. So they'll say, for example, I have an online store, right? And I want to make an AI chatbot for the AI store.
Right,
So
right.
prompt engineer will feed it all the documentation, all the policies, the store policies, and everything, and then
That's
it'll just,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's it'll just make it on its own. It's
yeah,
insane.
that's creating jobs. Who
Yeah.
would have thought?
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
definitely I think is AI is something that every artist and every creative should really take an advantage of.
I agree. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think I've seen a lot of cool stuff with it, and it's here to stay. So
For
might as
sure.
well embrace it, for sure.
And so what's the next step? So you got the song a little bit, you've worked on it.
Yep.
If you want to get someone on the track, like how do you do
Yeah.
that?
So yeah, I think a lot of it is goes back to maybe those communities we already talked about. Being a part of that, there's oftentimes artists who are looking to collaborate as well, and if you can just connect with these people and send them music, you like if you have stuff that's already, fleshed out and it sounds pretty good, you send it to these people and you're just like, hey, I'm a fan of your music. I think you have a good style, and I think you would complement this track really well. What do you think about working on it? And people are cool, and maybe they have a bunch going on, and if they do, they'll say no. But if they are, open to it and they like the vibe, they'll take it and they'll take on the challenge. So yeah, that's kind of how collaboration goes, and just kind of finding people around you that are around your same skill level or better. It's always nice to collaborate with people who are better than you because you learn a lot from it. So yeah, just kind of finding those people, building a community, being able to access that community, and just just be welcoming, and always go into these encounters with providing value, right? It's important when you meet people and you kind of are asking for things, you don't want to just be like, what can you give me? It's always like it's a mutual exchange, right? It's like when you meet people, you want to be able to bring value into every interaction. So if your music is to a place where you feel like it's valuable and fun and enjoyable, and you want to exchange, like send them an ID and they'll send you an ID. Let's collaborate. I'll work on the song that you started. You work on the song that I started, and I think that's like a lot of cool things come out of that, because now you might have two songs that end up being it, or maybe your song doesn't end up being the one you choose. It ends up being the one he sent you. So big advocate for collaboration and just kind of finding people in the community that are, producers as well. So.
And taking it to the even more granular level, how do you transfer files? I know everyone uses either Dropbox or some other type,
Right.
but some of them they are more expensive than other ones,
That's a good question.
and some people use different types. So what do you see more people using in the professional setting?
Yeah, I've used WeTransfer a lot. It is free. I've never paid for it. The only problem I've ever encountered was when I have like 80 stems, right? Which is a lot, by the way. And like I usually don't have, my tracks usually aren't that many. I like condensing stuff. But if I did have that many stems, I would maybe have to send it like one half, and then another folder have the second half, and then send it, because usually you have to pay for like the big files. WeTransfer is the one I found most useful. It's very convenient. You just put in the recipient's email, send it over, and it's there in like 5 minutes, if that, if it's a big file. Dropbox, I don't use Dropbox too much, except for like saving files that I might just have already on my phone. Just as like a hub to kind of go back to. There's probably so many platforms out there, but WeTransfer is the one that I personally use the most to send files, and I found it pretty effective for sure.
That's good. That's good. And so to the next step. So you've already got someone on your track. It's pretty much close to completing it. Do you master? I'm sure you master it yourself.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So after this one was kind of created, we mixed it. We mixed it down to a level that we were happy with. But we felt like it still needed a little bit more, and we actually found somebody who does mastering services, and we paid him to master it. Big advocate in that too. It's like if there's people out there that are always better at the thing that you do, right? So it's like if they offer services to help you, why not utilize that, right? And if you can afford it, then go for it. And it ended up bringing the track to a much clearer space, opening it up and making it sound like super professional, where obviously labels like it sounding the most professional it can get, radio ready, and we felt like it would be in our best interest to find somebody who does mastering and have them master it, and it was a great investment, and it turned out great. So really happy with that, and there are times where I've mastered tracks myself, and I have tracks of my own that are already out that I've mastered, but not all the time. There's some times where I'm okay with sending it out, and if I feel like there's only so much I can do, I'm okay with sending it out to somebody else.
And how did you find them? Was it through Patreon as well?
No, actually, this was just through one of the homie Dav's contacts. It was like one of the people who master for labels. Oftentimes, labels have an arsenal of people who kind of like do different things: artwork, mastering, mixing. So it was just it worked out perfectly where I was able to send it over, and he mastered it, and it turned out great. So yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah. So in a second, I'm gonna ask about what the people in the record labels do. But before that, I want to talk about. So you already have that mastered, right?
right.
How do you pitch it to the labels?
Right. So oftentimes this is like one of the trial and errors, and it can be sometimes the most disappointing part too, because honestly, there's a lot of rejection involved. And as a producer, when you get a track to a state where you're happy with it, right? You almost have to release control over it. You have to, especially when it's out, you have to kind of like, there's nothing you can do, right? It's out. You might hear something. You know how many times I've gone back to my track when it's already out? The shit's at like 25,000 streams, and I'm like, bro, why am I hearing that now? I'm like, it's too late to change that.
Yeah.
So it's like, you really have to release creative control. You kind of just got to be content with it where it's at, and you have to let it be what it's meant to be. Some people are going to receive it and are going to love it, and some people are going to receive it and say it's not for them. And you got to just be okay with that. And that goes basically the same method with labels. Not every label is going to love the song you produce, but if you can find one that believes in it, then just go for it. Like my first release, which is one of my favorite songs I ever made, that's actually a label release, was released under a very small German label, and it's on Spotify, and I think it only has like 1,000 streams, 2,000 maybe, and it's one of my favorite songs, and like I'm okay with it because it was my first release. It was like it allowed me to get established, and the fact that they believed in my track meant the world to me. You know what I mean? Regardless of the numbers, I was so happy with just being able to sign a track right away, or like for my first release, whether it was a small label or a big label, I think the feeling would have been the same. And I'm super grateful that they took a chance on it, and they promoted it the best they can with the audience that they had, right? And there's going to be times where you send it out to 12 labels, 15 labels, and only one of them wants it, but that's okay. Or maybe none of them want it, right? And then you kind of face a decision where you have to like, am I going to self-release this? And if you believe in the track and you like it and you think other people will like it, self-release it, right? Like there's no point of like holding back creative control over something that you've created and you really enjoy. So you might as well just let it out into the world, let it be perceived, and just like self-release. Some of the biggest tracks out there that end up going viral have been self-released with no label backing, right? And the EDM electronic label community is very different than like maybe another genre of music like hip hop or R&B. You're not really signing. They're not signing Cession as an artist. They're not saying like, all right, here's $1 million. You can only create for us for the next 2 years. There are some labels that do that, and obviously you get to a certain big enough point, you could sign a record label like that. But I'm signing these songs per track, and there's really no monetary like value except the streams or whatnot. But it's more so the support that the label gives you, and if they have an audience and they can pitch it to playlists on Spotify and get it to these big playlists, they kind of have the foundation to do that, and that's how you can leverage these labels to help you get your song to a new level that you might not be able to do yourself. But either way, I'm a big advocate for just releasing music, regardless if a label wants it or not. But yeah, there's a lot of no's, right?
That kind of answers my question about why you choose to do why you choose to go through the label route instead of self-releasing and
Sure.
being independent.
Right. It's yeah, a lot of it has to do with because one, I'm not like signing a 360 deal that's gonna be like
Yeah.
you can't create for anybody else but us now. So it's like obviously if that was the case, then I'd be a lot more hesitant, or you know, there's a lot more factors involved. But since these are just like micro agreements that are just like we're gonna almost like lease your song in a way for 5 years, and like after that, like my first release was like a 5-year contract. After 5 years, like it's back, the master's back to me, but it's like a 50-50 split for the time that it's signed, right? But it's just a song, right? I can still go and create a song for another label tomorrow, and that's completely okay, right? As long as I'm not releasing the same track under 5 labels, that's where it can get a little tricky. You can't do that. But yeah, it's a lot less serious, I guess, than the big scale. And the EDM community, there's so many labels out there, small labels, mid-sized labels, big labels, and they all kind of have audiences that they've crafted and gravitate towards their music. They all have like a certain sound. Some labels are like bass house oriented, like Confession, Chami's label, bass house, AC Slater's label, bass house, and then there's like other labels that are like more melodic house, deep house, and it's super cool because you can like almost shop around, like what vibe is my song, what label does it fit on the best, and then you can like send it out and see how it's perceived by them. And labels are really cool too. They'll give a lot of feedback. They'll be like, we like it, well, we want to sign it, but we would like if you changed XYZ, and they'll help bring your track to a new level. They'll be like, all right, in the drop, something here can be different. What do you think? And then like you can kind of like, oh, actually, that's a good point. Let me go and rephrase that a little bit and get it to where they like. And it could also propel your song to a new level too. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits in the electronic label community, and a lot of these labels are pretty good, and they care about the artist. They want to just promote the song the best they can, and they want to you also got to think, most of these labels, they want your song to be the next viral hit because it brings more attention to their label, right? So if the song is good and they believe in it, they're going to do the best they can at marketing it. And as an artist, you also have to do your portion of marketing, of course, too. So it's a collaborative effort, again.
And when you're trying to find labels to pitch to, I know you had previously told me you kind of looked for them through Spotify, but do you use anything else like Submit Hub or anything like that?
Yeah, Submit Hub is another good resource. Spotify is a great resource just looking at the music that you feel like your song is a similar vibe to. You can go and see where these artists have released their labels and find so many other labels.
Tell me the process of how you do that.
Yeah, so I'll just, for instance, if I made a deep house song, right, something very melodic, I would go find songs that are similar in vibe, look at these artists, go to their profiles, click on the song that fits the vibe of the track I created, and then see if it's released by a label. And then I would go kind of like into the rabbit hole, look at the label, see the other releases by other artists on that label, and then I'm like, okay, this fits the vibe of the song that I created. This would be a good label to send to. I also like going to their Instagram, making sure they're legit. Are their followers real? Sometimes that's a clear indication. Doing a little bit of research for maybe hitting up artists who have released on that label, asking them about their experience. Was it smooth? Was the promotion as you expected? And then just kind of crafting like a repertoire of like labels that you know are going to be reliable. Jendex, showed up for us on Escape, and 30,000 streams isn't all that crazy, but it was enough for me to be happy with Jendex, and like it was a big achievement for me because my previous song only had 5,000 streams, so it's like it was a huge milestone for me, and I was super grateful of the support that they gave us. And they did right by us, and I was like, okay, this track, I'm going to send it to them and see if they want to release it. They liked it, and we were like, why not? Let's just go for it. We honestly, for close to me, there was a lot of labels who declined it, and Jendex wanted it, so we were like, we might as well release it. They're a great label. They have a lot of support behind them, and we're just going to put it out and see what we can do with it. But labels is an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. you know, it's not the most fun process, but it is rewarding when you, especially if you land on a label like your dream label. Like Confession is a dream label of mine. Night Base, AC Slater's is a dream label of mine. Selected, another huge deep house label. Like these are like labels that are like the pinnacle of like, if I release on this label, my song is going to do very well. Like I'm confident in that. But it's just getting to that point where my skills are matching enough to where they, you know, receive the track and they're like, okay, this fits well. And I'll know I'll get there eventually. Just got to continue on the journey, and one thing at a time, right? One song at a time. The next song I make can be the one that lands on that label. You never know. So
Exactly. So tell me a little bit more. So once you get it signed, for example, what's the process after that? You hand over the rights to them.
yeah, they they send over contracts. You know, you sign your contract. You make sure all parties are involved. If it's a collaborative track, everybody signs their piece. Figure out the split. For Escape, we all did like an equal split. We all contributed equally. It was just right down the middle. And that's for like royalties or these streams and anything else that might come from it. And then you kind of just decide to split. Then you go, once you sign the actual agreement, it's pretty much just a waiting game. You know, labels are pretty busy. They're getting track submits every day, probably hundreds of tracks that they're sifting through to see what they want to, and they have a whole release schedule. So we signed this track, I think, back in January or February, and it's now just coming out in June. So they have a whole release schedule. They can't just like put it exactly where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or like you've signed a song this month, it's not going to come out the same month usually. It's just a few months there. So yeah, then it's just a waiting game, being patient, gives time to like plan a promotional schedule. It gives time for the label to send over content, and you know, they send over their artwork that they had in mind, and then we kind of go back and forth with like what we like and what we don't. For this track, like they sent over a bunch of artwork, and we took the 3 images and like made a single collage image, and it ended up being super cool. And now we're gonna run with that as our artwork. So yeah, that's kind of just like the back end of the process. Nothing too crazy. I'm sure with bigger labels, it's a lot more detailed and fundamental. But with the labels I've worked on, it's pretty simple and smooth, I would say.
So the labels have their own. You said they have their own people for different things like graphic design and stuff like that.
Yeah, usually they'll have like, they might have their own people who create the artwork. I know like Confession, if you look at all their releases, they're very similar in aesthetic. So they definitely have like in-house designers that, you know, create their artwork. I'm not sure exactly how Jendex does it, but they sent over a bunch of images that are cool, and we just kind of, like I said, rolled with it and created something out of all of those. But yeah, they'll have their own designers. I know for a track I've worked on in the past, I think it was Escape actually. Jendex offered us certain help with like mastering and mixing certain things just to kind of get, you know, certain frequencies right and sitting right where they liked it. And that was another kind of tool that they offered us, and we were like, why not use it, right? We got it to a place where we like, but they see that it can go an extra 5%. Let them handle that. They handled it. They got it to where it was perfect, where they liked it, and then we went forward and released it. So those are the good labels, right? The labels who are going to offer support and tools to, you know, help you as a creative. And there's a lot of those out there, but there are labels out there who just want to sign songs, release, sign songs, release, sign songs, release, and they don't really do their job at supporting. So it's just kind of, that's why I encourage people to actually reach out to people who have released on these labels, send them a DM, hey, this label's interested in my track. I've seen you released on this. Curious how it went for you. And then you get like a first-hand account, right? You know exactly, you're hearing it from the source of like, did this go well? Did this not go well? What did they like? What did they not? And then you can kind of trust that opinion rather than just a label saying that we're going to do our job, right? So, so yeah, sometimes it requires some shopping, but it's all part of the process. So you can see from where the inception of the song, getting in the studio and starting, to where it ends up being signed and put out. It's a long journey, and that's just for one song. So it's like, it's definitely one of those. You know, this year has been a slower start for me than I would have liked. You know, I have my own goals of like creating and what I wanted out of this year. And it's necessarily not going the exact way I pictured it, but I'm honestly just come to terms with, it's been a year where I've been able to kind of go back into the lab, perfect my craft a little bit more, really enhance my technical skills, and just kind of learn more about my style and my sound and what I want it to be, and not getting caught up on like how many songs I might release this year. This song "Close to Me" is the first actual label release of the year for me, and we're a little more than halfway, or if not.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you know what I mean? That's a slow year, and another, as an artist, you can start to compare yourselves to others, and that's like really where things can kind of go south. Comparison is the thief of joy, they say, right? So it's
Yeah,
like if you're
definitely
comparing
fact.
yourself as an artist where you're at in your journey compared to others, it can become toxic, and it's definitely something I've struggled with over this year. But I've learned to kind of just embrace it, continue working behind the scenes. Like, even though this year what people are seeing is Close to Me, wow, it's his first song releasing this year, I've been in the studio nearly every day working on my craft, building new sounds, experimenting, figuring out who I want Cession to be, my identity as an artist, my sound, and people don't see that, and that's okay. They'll see the product, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and I've just kind of embraced it, and I trust that if this isn't the year where I have 5 label releases, next year might. Maybe next year might just be 1 label release, but it lands on my dream label. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's so many variables in it, and try not to get too caught up on like the end result, and be more focused and present in like just kind of creating and being an artist. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I love that. And yeah, you really talked about those challenges as an artist there. I really, it really resonates with me because I go through a lot of those challenges too.
Of course.
Myself, with
Sure.
Inspo as a business.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the record label thing, so once I really want to focus on that to let the independent artists know,
Yeah,
and
sure.
really everyone else that really wants to follow that path,
Absolutely.
because I feel like you're doing it properly.
Appreciate that.
So once you've got it signed to the label,
Mhm.
right? You've made the contracts. What kind of agreements? What are your responsibilities as an artist, and what are theirs as a record label?
Yeah, it's usually pretty smooth. Their job is always going to be to promote the track to the best of their ability to their audience that they've created. Oftentimes that results in pitching it to Spotify playlists. Under Spotify for artists, you could see all of the Spotify playlists that your song is in. And that was like with Escape was my first time actually looking at that and seeing really cool labels. Like, it was on a lot of these bigger labels have playlists that they create for their audience, and Escape was on some of these really big labels that had Martin Garrix's label, Stamped Records, a playlist that was created by Stamped Records. Our Escape was in for a while,
That's
and it says how many streams comes from each playlist too. I think we had like over like 10,000 streams from that playlist alone, and then
Wow.
like some other playlists that I've never even heard of, created by people who have maybe like 20,000 listeners in that playlist who like the playlist. That playlist alone resulted in like 10,000 streams for us, and it's really cool because you can see the breakdowns in Spotify for artists of like each playlist that add your songs, and then the results that come from it. So yeah, that's kind of what the label is in charge of, just kind of. And you can also reach out. Like, there were labels that me and Davs reached out to, and we're like, hey, I really like your playlist. We think that our song could fit well. I encourage a lot of producers out there and artists to do that. Like, if you find playlists that has a good audience, and a good vibe that feels like your track can fit, reach out to the creators of it. Usually they'll have like an email and the playlist name, and just tell them like, hey, really like your playlist, really think that my song could fit well. Here it is, let me know. Would love if you added it. And then they might add it. And then that's an audience of 20,000 people that can just listen to your song. And that's kind of like where you can kind of play in collaboration with the label to get your songs to playlists. That's a really big portion of your streams, and who's listening is getting into these playlists. Of course, the label will release it and promote it on their Instagram, their content, and their platforms. So yeah, it's kind of a collaboration of promotion once the song is signed and releasing.
Do you spend any money at all on advertising?
Sometimes, the Facebook ads, running, just a generic Facebook ad for the song might be an investment I've done before. When you look at other avenues, you know, I haven't done this personally, but I've seen people who have reached out to TikTok creators and have been like, hey, I'll pay you if you make a dance out of my song. Why not, right? If you can afford to do that, go for it. You know, that can be your opportunity to literally go viral, especially with a platform like TikTok nowadays where things can go viral overnight. That's another option. You have, you know, there's so many ways to, you know, get creative with promotion and, you know, paying for content creators to maybe make a visual breakdown. For Escape, we did kind of like the stems of the track and kind of showed like the individual elements. So like just the drums and then just a synth. And then we paid somebody to create that video for us, but it wasn't too expensive and it ended up looking very visually appealing, and it was a piece of content we could put out to help promote the song. So if you have the means, yeah, music doesn't require some capital up front to pursue it, right? It can be an expensive hobby, but if you believe in your songs and you want to get the best results, sometimes that requires spending a little bit of money, and it's definitely beneficial if you're doing it the right way and spending it in the right way.
For sure. I really believe that being an artist is you know, the artist is the business.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's the artist, but then there's the person, and sometimes the artist has to be kind of like a figure of a brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Cession is a branch of Tyler the person, right?
Exactly.
It's like I try to keep it close, you know, because I want Cession to be a representation of who I am as a person, but at the same time, it's also me as an artist. So the music I create, you know, there's going to be bits and pieces of that is who I am as a person, but there might also be bits and pieces of, you know, a persona. You know what I mean? And that's okay.
Persona, yes.
It's an artist, so it's like it's okay if it's a persona. It's okay if it's a representation of, you know, different things, a cultivation of a bunch of art or a different inspiration from different places. That's what it should be, and it's almost cool to like be able to look at, you know, the persona of Cession and just kind of see it for who it is, and like realize, you know, I can go on Spotify, break down, and look at people have listened to my song in South Africa or like New Zealand, or I don't know anybody from those countries, but they know who Cession is. And I think that's super cool and a really good feeling for an artist of all walks of life, right?
Definitely, yeah. And Cession is more of an art, is more than just a person, right? It's also a whole business. It's a whole movement. It's an idea, right? And you got to push that as you would any business. You know, a business makes a product and then they market that product, just like an artist makes music and they market that music. You got to treat it just the same way.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you are the business. Your art is the business. And it's like, you got to believe in yourself. And if you can do that, everything else will kind of carry itself where it's meant to go. So
Exactly.
Sure.
Gentlemen, would you like to add anything? We have our co-hosts, DMV 2.0 and V8 behind the scenes operating.
Yeah. Testing here. Okay. Hey, you know, Cession, bro. I'm glad you're here, man. Third broadcast here, and I'm glad. I mean, everything's going out well for you. I see. When I first met you, I mean, it was in the DJ scene. I didn't know you made any music yet. You know, you were kind of still just tiptoeing into that, creating music. And, you know, when I hear your music, it's like, wow, you really got, you know, you got a talent, and
appreciate that,
you gotta keep going with it. And I mean, I see a bright future for you, for sure.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you.
I only got one question real quick.
Let's hear it.
Cession, how, you know, where'd you get that name? How'd you think of that?
That's a good question. So, Cession kind of came about just brainstorming, honestly. I can sometimes create names off of a whim, just kind of thinking and just kind of saying random stuff, seeing what makes sense. I thought about studio sessions and like when I'm in the studio creating studio session, and then I was like, Cession is a dope name, but I want to spell it different. So Cession. looked at it. Another thing as an artist, you got to see if the name is already taken. There's so many artists out there and people who make music. Cession was open, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna run with this, and it just feels right. It's something easy to say. I didn't want to make anything that was too crazy or too complex with numbers or anything like that, or number for a letter. That can get a little tricky. So I wanted to just keep it clean, easy to say. I've heard some people mispronounce it. I've heard Cession, and I've heard some crazy stuff, but oftentimes, like I would say 90% of the time, people get it right. Cession. I would say it's pretty universal, and I think it works, and I'm super happy with it. It hasn't been anything that I've thought about changing. It feels good, and I think it feels good to me as a creative because I know I can produce multiple genres with it. You know what I mean? It doesn't just cater to house, or it doesn't just cater to one specific vibe. It's a name that can kind of encapsulate a bunch of different vibes and genres, and I think that's how I kind of resonate as a producer. I don't want to, I love house music, and that's kind of become more so what Cession is, but I've made future bass songs, I've made trap songs, I've made other genres, drum and bass. I might make a drum and bass song, and I feel like Cession could still hold pretty universal to all those genres. So I'd say that's how the name came about, and I think it's here to stay for sure, unless I make another persona. And I actually do have another persona out there. It's called Brandon Hills, and there is a song out on Spotify under Brandon Hills, and it has my vocals, and it's called Picasso. And I love the track. It's also with Nick James, but that is Brandon Hills is more of like a vocal thing, and haven't dove into it too much, but it's there, and the vision is there. So it's
interesting.
Gonna be a project.
Yeah,
it's on Spotify. Picasso. Nick James featuring Brandon Hills, and it's a fun track, very K-Tronada like. So I would suggest you guys to go listen as well.
Definitely.
Little plug.
Definitely. DMV 2.0, what you got?
Yo. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's another beautiful Friday. You know how we do here. But yeah, man, it's really nice having you out here again. We're, of course, doing something very different from what we usually do. We're always out here DJing.
Yes,
we're usually
sir.
behind the decks, which we've had the honor of having you out here and throwing down.
Yeah, it's been
and
fun. Twice
and
now. It's been a good time.
And just sneaking in some of those little previews as well.
Yeah, I tried
We
to.
always love watching.
You guys always catch me at the perfect time. Every time you guys invite me out to do something, I always have a track releasing. Like last time, I had a track coming out like a week later. This time, I got a track coming out soon. It's like
It's perfect.
perfect timing, and it's not even planned. We're on the same wave.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, man. We absolutely love to see how you bloomed as an artist.
Appreciate that.
And through over time, even when you're just starting to play on the decks,
Yeah.
I remember you're over there asking us like, hey,
Absolutely.
how would be the best way to do this?
I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
Yeah, man.
DJing is not something I've dove into as much as I have with producing, but you guys clearly have been doing it a lot longer than me. So I need that guidance sometimes. And
It's all good because that's exactly what we're here for as well.
100%.
We're over here when we get your music, we're gonna be able to play it on our
Yeah.
sets and stuff, and then
for sure.
we're excited to play that as well.
Thank you, bro.
We'll also give you that shout out and stuff.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a specific track that you personally like that you made or you collaborated with somebody? Like, is there your top number one favorite?
Yeah, I would say probably Escape. My last label release on Jendex with Davs and Liz Honey on the vocals. That track was just something. I don't know. Maybe I might not ever get another track that like came into fruition how that one did, because it was just so perfect. Like I started out the vibe. I got it to a place where I was really happy with. Then Davs kind of came in and took it to another level, and then my friend Liz, who is an insanely talented vocalist, she came over. We started writing. And it's one of my favorite things to do is write tracks with people. It's just such like a fun, collaborative experience. And it's like the vibe in the room when you're kind of like on the same wave. And literally she's writing a bar, I'm writing the next. I'm finishing what she's writing. She's finishing what I'm writing. It's like, and it's a contagious energy, and it's so fun. And it's exactly how that went. We started, it was our first time meeting too. She came over, we had a mutual friend, and she came over, we were like talking, and I was like, I was like, yeah, you know, we're getting to know each other, and it's like it's a little awkward because we've never worked together. And then immediately when I played her the song, we started writing. Like all of it went out the window. It was just like we were friends for the longest time, and it was easy. She was super fun to work with. She was super talented, and we're just like writing, hitting record. Oh my God, that's fantastic. All right, we get to the drop. She writes something. It's flowing. It's like the song is coming together in real time, and it's such a cool process. And I'm so happy that that song came out that way and it was received by people in such a good way. That has to be my favorite song because it's just the way it kind of came into fruition was just perfect. And I feel like this song releasing Close to Me is very similar to how Escape came about. It was a very similar process with Nick writing the vocals and then passing it to Davs to add his touch. It kind of feels like it has the same build-up, and I'm hoping that it gets perceived the same way as well. So yeah, I think I would say Escape is that track for me.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, everybody go check that out for sure. Go check out his music.
Thank you.
And also shout out the vocalists, you know, putting
Yeah.
in that work out there. Shout out
Yes,
to
sir.
them. Shout out to everybody else, you know, the production team and everybody else working behind the scenes, you know.
Absolutely.
We're all doing our thing here. We're all working together. We're all living in this beautiful world together. In this
Sure.
beautiful world of art as well.
That's
Yes,
it.
sir.
Session, by any chance, you got any people you want to shout out? Any, family members, any support? People
Yeah,
that-
I mean, people I've worked with, the homie Daz I mentioned a few times this podcast, my homie Nick, another great artist who has been a little bit behind the scenes, but I want him to get back into music a little bit more. Liz, fantastic artist here in Southwest Florida. She performs a lot around the area. Liz Honey is her name. Fantastic. Just like her vocals are insane, just like organic. My friend Valen in Argentina, he's taught me a lot. Another great artist. And yeah, I would say those are the people that come to mind that I worked. And then, of course, everyone in this room. You guys have all become very good friends of mine, and I appreciate you guys inviting me out. And I appreciate what you guys are doing for, artists in the community and worldwide, and just spreading your message and just kind of getting into a place of, really looking out for people who are creating, because there's not a lot of people who look out for the small players, and we need more people like you guys to look out for the small members. So
Appreciate you.
you guys are doing I've been here for a while watching you guys and what you've been doing, and where you are at now is so much more evolved and kind of fleshed out. You guys really got this down, and I'm so excited to see where you guys will be in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. And we're all gonna kind of do it together. You know what I mean? We're all, one of us, takes off. We're all coming together. Like,
Yes,
we got a
sir.
team, so it's we're all doing the same thing. We all have the same
Amen.
message. So
Amen.
Appreciate it.
that's what it's
man.
about.
You're always
sir.
welcome.
Appreciate your kind
Appreciate it.
words, Tyler and Session.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming through. You have, you just released Escape about a month ago.
A little bit longer now.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
actually been it's probably been like 10 months maybe.
10 months.
Yeah, it's been out for a
Christ,
minute.
I've been, what
Maybe 8
world am I
months?
living? I'm
Yeah.
cloud 9 every day.
Yeah.
10 months ago. So
Yeah.
listen to Escape. That's on Jendex. And also Close to Me is dropping June
23rd.
23rd.
Yes, sir. Yeah, excited
So
about it.
we'll put that in the link in the description. So
Thank
keep an
you.
eye out for that. Tyler, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so Cession Music on Instagram, Cession on Spotify, Cession on Apple Music, Cession on SoundCloud, and that is spelled Cession. And yeah, I'm on all major platforms. I'm on Facebook. I don't really use it much, but I'm on there. So yeah, I just appreciate all the support. Anybody who's ever listened to my music, anybody who's ever felt something by my music, anybody who's ever just enjoyed it, I really do appreciate it. And this has just been a journey for me, and that's all it is. It's a passion. It's a passion project. It's a journey for me to follow and create and pursue something that I believe in. And we're all doing that here in this room. We're all pursuing something that we believe in. And, whatever ends up coming of it, I'm grateful for. So thank you all for listening and tuning in, and I do appreciate every one of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you once again, Session. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been another episode here at the Incubator. I am your host, Ed the Manager, with our co-host DMV 2.0 and V8 behind the
Let's
scenes.
get it.
Yeah, y'all have a good night. Love y'all.
Hey,
Thank you all for tuning in.
huge.
Till the
Have a
next one.
wonderful night.
Thank you.